I have waited almost an entire decade to finally get this swim bait. Well, is it gonna be worth it, or did I just waste my money? So by now, most of you guys should know that one of my favorite swim baits of all time, if not my favorite swim bait of all time, is this bait right here. This is the Andrew Hinkle Trout. I've made tons of videos on this bait. I've caught tons of fish on this bait. It's been a proven bait for me for many, many years. And I remember when Andrew first made these baits around 2012, 2013, when he did a release of them at Bassathon, I thought to myself, before I even had the bait in my hands, like, this bait, if I can get my hands on it, will change my life forever. And after many, many years later, I was finally able to get one at a decent price of $325, which back then was a steal. And I was able to get my first ever Hinkle Trout. And the moment I got it, I knew, like, oh, this was everything I could have possibly have imagined that the bait would be. And it performed extremely, extremely well for me. I caught tons of fish on it. I caught fish in the summer, fall, winter, spring, anywhere. Super clear water, dirtier water, places that didn't even have trout. I was catching fish on this bait. And I'm still catching fish on this bait basically 8 years later. It's been a very proven bait for me. Now, back then around 2013, 2014, when Andrew was making those baits, he also made a prototype bait called the Trick Trout. It was a segmented swim bait that looked very similar to the Hinkle Trout, the original glide bait. And after seeing pictures of it and seeing people catch fish on it, I was like, oh dude, that thing is super dope. I'd love to get my hands on it. Well, basically, probably like 8 years or so, 7 years or so after the original teasing of the bait, Andrew was able to make a production batch of these baits. And what you have is this guy right here. This is the new Andrew Hinkle Trick Trout. 10 inches long, weighs around 6 ounces. It is an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous swim bait. I mean, the overall detail on this bait rivals the original glide bait. Scaled patterns, that's actually like scaled into the resin. The head is super detailed. You've got these fins on here that are silicone to give a more realistic look at it. And the paint job is just unbeatable. It's a beautiful, beautiful bait. Now, why did it take so long to finally R&D this bait? Well, unlike the Hinkle, it's got a normal joint here in the middle that's a hard resin joint. What makes this bait so hard to make and kind of fine tune is, well, inside of these joints, the joints here, they're actually like a rubber silicone. So you can kind of like twist the bait and flex it to give it a certain wobble and roll look to it while it's swimming through the water. And I believe that is probably the reason why it's so hard to make this bait, is you've got to make them all different sizes as well going down, because there's 4 different joints on this bait. So you have to fine tune each one of those little silicone joints to make this bait swim how it's supposed to. And obviously tuning the bait, painting it, getting the mold of it correct, like all that, it took a very long time. And it's a pain in the ass to make just one of these baits. That's why after purchasing the bait, it took, 2.5 years to actually get the bait in my hands. But now that I've got it in my hands, I almost wish that I would have bought 2 of these instead of just the one. But I don't know whether or not this bait will actually perform for me as well as the original, Hinkle Trout, the glide version. When I was first kind of getting into swim baits and I was reading up on different lures that were popular, some of the more popular hard baits were like a triple trout or a Rago tool or a 316, all segmented swim baits. And it really wasn't until like the early-ish to mid 2010s when Butch Brown was posting up all of his cast to catch and big fish that he was catching on the 250, where glide baits really seemed to take over the scene while the segmented swim baits kind of took a back seat. So I haven't really thrown segmented swim baits a lot. I haven't found confidence in them more than I do with a glide bait. I've caught fish on triple trouts, obviously, and they work when I throw them, but I always seem to gravitate towards fishing glide baits. But we'll see that if there's been this trend where segmented swim baits, were on top, then glide baits came in and took over. But it does seem like in recent times, these segmented swim baits have started to kind of come back into people's arsenal. And it could be a thing of like, all right, these bodies of water, they've been seeing glide baits for basically the past 10 years or so. Why not throw something that swims a little more natural and it's just completely different that the fish may have not seen in their lifetime? For some of those fish a decade ago might have never even seen a segmented swim bait. So it'll be a very interesting bait for me to fish. I don't know if it'll be worth the wait and time because, again, I've never really thrown segmented swim baits. I don't know how my fish are going to react to it, but overall, I am pretty stoked to finally get my hands on this bait. It's a beautiful bait, and I'm excited to see where it'll play in my arsenal when it comes down to fishing in the season. Now, what's cool is that Andrew was able to kind of keep the same, aesthetic as the original glide. Very similar baits where there's a lot of detail. The scale pattern's dope. The same silicone fins, details in the head. The paint jobs are amazing. The glide is 11 inches, while this bait is going to be 10 inches. So slightly bit different, a little bit smaller profile, but still a really, really cool bait. So, at this moment, I don't think Andrew is taking any pre-orders or making any more batches of these baits. I don't know if I'll ever be able to get my hands on another one of these, so hopefully, knock on wood, I don't lose this bait first cast. So, awesome looking bait, but the most important thing is, will this bait actually catch me fish? And we'll have to find that out come November when the lakes start getting trout again. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, go out there and chase your dreams.